Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Midweek Madness. Joining me today is a very special person. You may say he's the one who started the fire. Welcome, Jason from Sci-Fi4Me.
Hello, how are you?
How
Thanks
you
for
doing?
having me.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it's a very warm fire, but it is what it is, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, hey, gotta keep things lit somehow. So, what's the weather been like in your area?
It's actually not been too bad. We had a little bit of rain earlier this week, but we're not looking at anything here. Uh, anything close. I'm looking at the radar right now. It looks like we're not going to get anything anytime soon. So
Hello, Mindy. How you doing today? Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
yeah, there's Mrs.
Yeah, it
Boss.
hasn't. Yeah. Say again.
That's Mrs. Boss. She's my better half. So
Oh yes. Always great to see someone be supportive and whatnot. So yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Obviously, what's your favorite genre of fiction? I really don't know. I have no idea what kind of fiction you like. So please tell us.
well, I grew up favoring science fiction more than anything else. I'm not too big into horror, but fantasy, crime thriller, political thriller, but mostly leaning into the sci-fi, hard science fiction, military science fiction. Big fan of David Weber's Honor Harrington stories. Of course, there's Star Trek and Star Wars. All the requisite fan check boxes. Battlestar
Mm-hmm.
Galactica and Doctor Who and that sort of thing. So pretty typical of fans who have been fans for longer than a day and a half, like some.
Yeah, requisite gray hairs and whatnot.
Yeah, or white in some cases. So.
Yeah. So when it comes to like sci-fi authors, who are some of your favorites? Like for me, I'm a fan of like William Gibson, Orson Scott Card. Kind of like 70s, 80s kind of people.
Yeah, Cards in there, Anne McCaffrey. I mentioned David Weber. You go old school with Heinlein and Bradbury,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got Sturgeon in there, Diane Carey, Diane Duane.
Bruce
So
Sterling.
there's a number of them. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm always been a big fan of like the cyberpunk genre, and obviously Bruce Sterling, William Gibson are like kind of progenitors of that. Like Neuromancer is kind of like the catalyst and whatnot.
Yeah, I never really did get into the Neuromancer type of stuff. I'm a big fan of Blade Runner, but Gibson, I don't know that I've ever even read Gibson. I should. It should be on my list, but it's you know that that list of I need to get around to reading it is getting longer the older I get. So
You know what I find interesting
and
about the whole Blade Runner thing is the short stories based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Thematically, they're very similar, but story wise, they're completely different.
yeah,
Like the theme of like what is a human, what's the difference between humanity, the difference between humanity and machines is empathy, and then humans acting more like machines, machines acting more like humans. Those thematic elements are intact, but the storyline is so different. It's it's
yeah.
it's you know.
And I think you'll find with a number of short stories that get adapted. I mean, you look at something like Total Recall, for example, which is another adaptation of Philip K. Dick. We can remember
Mhm.
it for you wholesale, and the bones are there, but the short story and the movie don't resemble each other a whole lot. So
Or I
there
Am
are some.
Legend, Richard Matheson.
I Am Legend is another example, and I hear the one with Will Smith is probably the closest adaptation as far as faithful to the source material. But even then, I mean, you've
If you
got
take the alternate ending into account, from what I imagine.
yeah. So Hollywood is constantly taking liberties with these things because in translating from one medium to the other, and making it a Hollywood story,
Hmm.
you gotta sexy it up. You've got to do some things that may not play well in the book, and if you take the stuff that's in the book, it might not play well visually. So yeah, I've gotten to the point now where if it's based on something, I know not to expect that it's going to be 100% accurate. I mean, Denis Villeneuve did such a fantastic job with Dune Part 1. I was actually surprised at how close he was able to get, given the way the machine works.
And I'll say this about the David Fincher version: is it accurate? No. Is it entertaining? Hell yes. Like it's a very entertaining movie. And does the story make sense? But it's very visually very visually good, and it has a very good entertainment factor to it.
Well, and we were talking about this on the H2O podcast here not too long ago. The fact that David Lynch only had a 2-hour window to tell this entire story. You know, he's got such a compressed box to fit everything into. There's no way that he's going to give us an accurate adaptation of Dune. No matter what he does. So you get it close, you make it good enough for box office in Hollywood, and hope for the best. And you know, the Sci-Fi Channel did their adaptation, and it was closer.
I think the Sci-Fi one is even closer than Denis Villeneuve. It's just I believe the Sci-Fi version is constrained by budget, and like the costumes are like the thing that people go on about.
Yeah, well, and you know, budget is always going to be a thing when you're talking about network television. And nowadays, when you have things like the streaming services, which are able and willing to put a certain amount of money in at the beginning, and then, well, if the numbers aren't there, 2 seasons in, 3 seasons in, it's done. I mean, you can almost count on the fact that the streaming channels are not going to follow through on the commitment to tell the entire story. So, yeah, like if it's canceled after halfway through.
Yeah, if it's not like the top 3 of all streaming, it's done. We've lost some good stuff that way.
Yeah.
I liked Altered Carbon. That first season of Altered Carbon is really, really good. Second, but I would have loved to see where they went with a third season.
I think it's typical of genre programming in general, because until there was the Sci-Fi Channel, there really wasn't a whole lot of network television support for science fiction in general anyway. I mean, ABC only did a season of Battlestar Galactica. NBC did 3 seasons of Star Trek. They did a season and a half-ish of the animated Star Trek. V only got two miniseries, and they got half a season of the series. The executives and the network suits generally don't seem to understand science fiction. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier because the people that are in that bracket are of an age where they grew up a little bit more familiar with science fiction, but they still don't totally wrap their heads around it.
Yeah, like didn't the Battlestar Galactica remake kind of get cut short a little bit?
There was I think if I remember right, they had a period of time where they were dealing with a writer's strike in the middle.
Yeah, because it seems like after the Pegasus arc, it really seemed like they kind of didn't know what to do with the show. Because I'm a really big fan of the Battlestar Galactica remake. Like, we can kind of talk about that one the rest of the show. I love that series. And for me, like, the TV movies were pretty good, like Razor, Pegasus, but like once they start getting onto New Caprica, things kind of started to putter out, like, we found Earth, but it's a wasteland. Then they find a new Earth, and it just so happens to be our Earth, which I think is a fair ending. I think the ending is fine,
The ending is contrived for me.
Yeah, because like the daughter that like was a background character, suddenly she's the most important person in the show, and she doesn't have a single line in the entire series.
Well, I think the other thing too is you look at I think it was either season 3 or 4 when they did the time jump, and time jumps are generally never a good sign that you're on solid footing story-wise. J.J. Abrams did it with Alias, where they jumped 2 years forward from one season to the next. And you leave your audience kind of scrambling and fumbling around trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? Where am I?
It's a
What's
soft
happening?
reset. It's a
Yeah.
soft story reset. That's all it is.
Yeah, and
I
if
will
you
say
don't
this.
have...
One thing I really liked about the new Capra storyline, and I feel like this is kind of a thing that Battlestar Galactica did really well, it was really good at showing different perspectives on things. It's like they literally did suicide bombers when
Yeah.
it was like it was hot in the news. You know, like every other week you'd have a suicide bomber in Palestine in Israel. Like would you do their thing, and that was big in the news in like the 2000s. And to show that from another side, I thought that is like quintessential sci-fi, because to me, sci-fi is all about showing hard topics in a more palatable form, and it's because like
Yeah.
I'm kind of I'm a student of the Twilight Zone. That's where I get a lot of my approach to sci-fi is you show these hard topics, you do it in a more digestible manner.
The problem that I had with it at the time was not necessarily that they were doing those storylines, but they were doing it in a way, and they were marketing it in a way, with interviews and publicity and stuff, that made it seem as if they were sympathetic to the terrorists that were attacking various places in the Middle East. And I don't think that went over very well with some people, and that probably affected viewership, because there was a lot of media coverage about, well, why are they taking the side of the bad guy? And they may not necessarily have been doing that, but the appearance of that probably didn't help. And
Yeah.
you add that to the time jump, you add that to the various other problems that they were having with the story, with the writer's strike and everything else, and the quality of it just tapered off after that. And I think you're right. I think especially after the Pegasus arc, it kind of meandered. And what are we going to do? The show lost me when they did. When they started playing Dylan, you know, when you have the final five that are quoting, Bob Dylan all along the Watchtower, like, wait a minute, no, okay, I'm done. I mean, I watched
do
the
like
rest
that
of
theme,
it, but
like that piano theme, I really like it. But yeah,
yeah, but I mean, incorporating. See, and this is the problem that I have with modern era Star Trek and Star Wars, and the dialogue and some of the different themes that are being introduced into this stuff. You can't, if you do modern era anything, whether it's dialogue or slang or political concepts or different themes or anything like that, you immediately date the show. And one of the things with Battlestar Galactica is this takes place way out here, somewhere way out there. And all along the Watchtower is Bob Dylan. And you're not going to have any logical justification to connect those two. And you run into the same problem with Star Wars, with Poe Dameron saying, "Is this thing on?" Trying to do that whole silly bit in the beginning of Last Jedi.
or Star Trek Beyond, where they literally bring in Beastie Boys.
I was like, this is dumb. This dates this, and it's not going to survive scrutiny over. It's not going to last the test of time. It's not going to be something that anybody's going to have any interest in 10 or 15 years from now.
Yeah, it's like you watch an old Mel Brooks parody where they make a joke off of like a reference that was probably current at the time, and sure, it's probably still funny because it's a Mel Brooks movie, but you don't get the reference,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you could go even further back to Tom and Jerry cartoons. When he's sitting there and they're making out some item in the storyline, and then Tom's been hurt. And he comes in and he says, "Don't you believe it?" Well, he's actually quoting the radio show of Ripley's Believe It or Not. And you have those Easter eggs and those cultural references that go all the way back that far. But at the same time, out of context, it still works. And that's one of the things that writers these days don't understand is if I don't have the context of X story element that you're putting in your novel, your TV show, your comic book, your video game, if I don't have the context, I need to be able to have this element still work in your story. Otherwise, it blows me out. What does
So
this mean? What is this reference?
So what you're saying is, if you're going to put in a reference as a joke, the joke isn't, "Hey, that's a thing I know, ha ha." It should
Yeah.
be more, "Hey, that thing is funny by referencing a thing I know, ha," or "Hey, that joke is funny by referencing a thing I joke." But and it's like you gotta apply the axiom. If
Yeah.
you take the reference out of it, is the joke still funny? And if it's
Yeah,
still
it's still
funny,
got to work.
then you can get away with it. Like kind of like what I was saying with Mel Brooks film. It's like there's like I'm 34 years old and I probably get a lot more jokes than probably someone 10 years younger than me does, but like still there's probably a lot of those jokes that go over my helmet. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. But
I gotta
like
say though, Spaceballs has not aged well for me at all. So I, I could appreciate the humor a little more when I was younger. The older I get, the dumber it is, and I. It's been a very long time. I watched it here not too long ago, and I was struck by how crude the humor is. And I thought, this is just not as good as I remember it, and it hasn't aged well for me at all.
my favorite Mel Brooks movie will always be Robin Hood Men in Tights, and that has a perfect example of a reference where he's like, unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent. Where
Yeah,
it's like I barely get that joke. It's more of like I know that Prince of Thieves exists, but like I never seen the movie. I barely familiar with it. So it's like, but that joke actually kind of still works even without the context removed, so it's fine, you know. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of those. There is some of those reference jokes, like the Nike one. That one works as a visual gag. Like even if you don't get the reference, it's still. I think praying mantis was probably another like reference one, but like it's just so funny.
hmm
Trust, like Robin Hood Men in Tights is one of those films where, like I've seen it like a billion times, and I still laugh my butt off every time I see it. That movie's so good.
yeah. I think that one holds up a little bit better than Spaceballs.
Yeah,
So
it has a little bit more of a it's I wouldn't really say sophisticated because it's still like potty humor, um, but yeah, there is a certain immaturity with Spaceballs, I will say. Whereas Robin Hood Men in Tights it's I guess the way to say it is if Spaceballs is fifth grade humor, Robin Hood Men in Tights is eighth or ninth grade humor.
yeah, I could go with that. Now, if you really want a story that holds up as a comedy, with the fantasy aspects and the sword play and all of that, and one that is for me timeless because it's almost 100% perfect is The Princess Bride.
Oh, I mean, there's a reason. I mean, there's a reason why people still view it as a perfect movie. Where the very idea of it getting remade, it just sent people into such like it was an outrage. People were out like legitimately outraged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Princess Bride, and see now, I wouldn't mind. I need to be careful here. There's part of me that would not mind seeing the rest of the story, Buttercup's baby, but I don't know that there's anybody modern era Hollywood who could do it without making some kind of a political screech right in the middle of it.
Yeah,
And
because
so
like
I am perfectly fine never getting Buttercup's baby adapted as anything. Just take
because
the Princess Bride as it is by itself, put it in a time capsule, leave it alone, never touch it ever again. And I'm
because
fine.
you could make the argument of like oh, let's do a sequel where Fred Savage's wife or like Fred Savage's daughter is reading the story to her daughter or son, and because it's a woman reading it, it's told differently. I could see that working, just not under modern context. Like if this was made in the 90s and 2000s, I could maybe see that era doing it probably okay. But nowadays they just ruin it.
Yeah, we're starting to see the beginning of the pendulum swing back. I mean, the success of Top Gun Maverick is a good example of that.
I'm just hoping we get Tron 3 from it.
Maybe we get
the guy
Tron
directed
3.
it. The guy directed
Although
Legacy did Maverick.
If you end up with Tron 3, you're probably going to end up having to recast Cora, because Olivia Wilde going through what she's going through right now with Sudeikis and all of that, and everything going on with Don't Worry, Darling. I don't know that Olivia Wilde.
I'm not aware of that.
Much. There's some question on whether or not she's being honest about why Shia LaBeouf left the project. And it's coming out that there are some things what we didn't know about Olivia Wilde prior to her giving served with divorce papers from Sudeikis, and now things are kind of becoming a little bit of a PR kerfuffle, let's say.
So it's kind of like an Ezra Miller situation.
No, not quite that bad. Not quite that bad.
And I'm saying PR nightmare. It's similar, but nowhere near as bad.
No. I mean, you could scale it up maybe about from this size for Olivia Wilde to this size for Ezra Miller.
Even that is understating it.
Yeah. No, Olivia Wilde basically has apparently, and I'm going to say allegedly, apparently, I'm going to soft sell it here. But Shia LaBeouf apparently left the project, and she made it out that she had fired him. Only material has come out to support his position that he left, and mainly he left because he couldn't get any rehearsal time with Florence Pugh, who's in the movie as well. Mm-hmm. And Shia LaBeouf ends up getting replaced by Harry Styles, and the official story is that Olivia Wilde fired Shia LaBeouf because it's easy to beat up on Shia LaBeouf because of all of his history and past and whatnot.
Meanwhile, and LaBeouf comes out, has been relatively clean with what she's done.
Yeah, and LaBeouf comes out and says that's not how it happened, and that's not how it happened, and he brings receipts, and so now Olivia Wilde is starting to look like maybe she's not completely honest about things. So now you start to reevaluate all of her story and what she's been saying with regard to her split from Jason Sudeikis. Okay, well, everything gets painted into a different light now. So I don't know. I haven't been following that much, but that stuff has come across the transom as I've been looking at other things. So it's just,
you can do Tron 3 without Cora. Like it would be really good to have her there. Because my plot for Tron 3 has always been Master Control Program 2.0. I mean, you had Michael Chillian as Edward Dillinger Jr. Perfect casting for that type of role. He's in one scene, he freaking nails it, and I could just see that character creating a Master Control Program 2.0, and they somehow get a copy of the grid. You bring back Jeff Bridges, you bring back Sam Flynn. But
the setup at the end of Legacy has them out of the grid and out in real life. So Cora's out there, Sam's out there, and that's at the very least that's where you have to start. Whether you go back into the grid and back into the system or whatnot at some point, sure, you're going to have to do that. But it's like Back to the Future. When Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis wrote that movie, it was a one-off deal. There was no plan for a sequel at all. And they've said in a number of interviews, if we had ever thought that we were going to have a sequel, we never would have put Jennifer in the car. Because now you're locked into what happens next. Because your setup is Jennifer's in the car. Now what do we do? Well, now we got a sequel, but we got to get rid of Jennifer. Because Jennifer changes the dynamic between the other two. And so they spend 45 minutes, 3 minutes dealing with getting Jennifer out of the way so they can actually do the story that they're trying to tell. And so, that messes things up. The Rise of Skywalker does the same thing. They spend 45 minutes cleaning up after The Last Jedi in order to tell the story that they really wanted to
doing
tell.
a very bad job of it
try
at
to
the same
fix
time.
everything. Yeah. So it was a mess, and it was guaranteed to be a mess. And I think Rian Johnson might have done that on purpose. But that's a whole other.
We can talk about. Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, how foobarred it is.
I don't want to talk about The Last Jedi at all. I'd rather forget The Last Jedi ever happened. But
in my opinion, the only good Disney Star Wars film is Rogue One. That's the only one that actually feels like Star Wars.
Rogue One's a good one, yeah. But
I do like The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is good.
Yeah. Now, when you start when you start to look at the analysis of Rogue One and the comparisons between earlier LucasArts video games, then it starts to break down. Yeah, because now people are looking at this going, hey, wait a minute.
Where's Cal Katarn?
You start to make these one-to-one matches between the characters and the plots and the scenarios, and it's like, hold on. And then Rogue One takes on a completely different complexion.
If you want to talk about how much Disney basically destroyed the old EU, but is strip mining it. The sequel trilogy basically strip mined the Legacy of the Force storyline. Kylo Ren is Darth Caedus. Rey is Jaina Solo. It's like 1-1. Like literally, the story is so which honestly kind of takes on a creepy incestuous kind of tone to it.
And I can understand as a writer, as a producer, if I'm coming into an established story universe and I'm coming back 30 years later for a sequel of some sort. Mm-hmm. You have all of this in the EU, this established continuity, this established quote unquote canon at various different levels of whatever you accept as canon. Mm-hmm. And if I'm the one who's going to make the next movie, then you've got two choices at that point. Either you accept everything as canon and you build your movie off of
which
that,
is a huge mess.
It's a huge mess because now you have the extra problem of making things make sense for people who haven't read any of those books. Mm-hmm. Well, who is this redhead named Mara? Who is this kid named Ben? Who is now you got to explain it all before you can tell your story. It's the same problem that Rise of Skywalker had. You have to hit the ground running with your story and go. And from that standpoint, I can understand Kathleen Kennedy sitting there saying, well, we can't just pull from this stuff. We don't have all of the source. You can't adapt that as source material. You can't build off of it. You got to do something that's original, that's separate and apart from what's already been there, because how many people have actually read any of the books? It's the same problem they have now. Well, if this is going to make sense, if you want to understand this movie, you got to read this book and this comic book and play this video game. I don't want to do homework when I watch a movie. I want to watch a movie. I want to be entertained. Tell me a story.
Yeah, they basically got rid of one problem and then did the exact same thing over again.
Exactly. And they compounded it by making it all connected. And this piece over here explains this piece, explains this piece. You can't do it that way. That's bad storytelling. It's lazy.
And then you have these books that come out where it's like, yeah, Captain Phasma is a crappy character, but if you read this book, it explains everything. Like where like hardly anyone's going to read the book. We've all forgotten about Captain Phasma. It's whatever,
Well, it's just like this new book that's out. The Princess and the Scoundrel, talking about the courtship between Leia and Han. We've already had that book. It's called The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Yeah, I was about to quote that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're reinventing the wheel, and it's completely unnecessary.
And very badly, mind you. It's like they're adapting these stories, but it's like a general value, great value version of it. It's like I will say this, like if I'm gonna just kind of balance the force a little bit, there are some good aspects about the sequel trilogy. Like, I like the idea of Kylo Ren, like the whole unfinished gem, the burden of legacy, like having to live up to the Skywalker lineage and him trying to forge his own, kind of path. Like, there's some interesting ideas in his character. It's all done poorly, but
Yeah,
like
they did all that with Jason.
Yeah,
I mean, Jason Solo is the model for that, because you have, and if you want to do the whole dyad thing, Jason and Jaina are twins. I mean, it's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again, that goes back to
how crazy would it be in Last Jedi? It was revealed that Ren and Rey were twins. It's just at birth, Rey was given to Luke to train and was trained on the Praxium, but like, he had her memory wiped. And it's like, and that would perfectly explain why they have that link. It's like they have the bones of that. Like, how great of a reveal would that be?
And people were expecting them to be revealed to be, Jason and Jaina, essentially, to be the twins. But then you introduce the romantic aspects of it, and then it gets creepy. And then, we don't want them to be twins now. But
the Reylo shippers.
Yeah. The Reylo shippers who are now shipping Obi-Wan Kenobi and 10-year-old Princess Leia. I mean,
wait. People are doing that?
Yes, they are.
I mean, if they're doing it in a father-daughter kind of way, sure.
No.
That's fine.
No.
No. If they say Obi-Wan should be her father, then that's fine. I'm fine with that kind of stuff.
That's not the shipping that they're engaged in.
Excuse me, I need to barf.
Now, that Twitter account has finally been suspended.
Sorry, that's
where we are. That's where we are.
Curse. I got to curse for a moment. That is fucking disgusting. Shut the fuck up, okay?
It's your channel. But yeah,
I'm trying to keep it PG, but I get it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So anyway.
Oh dear God! And that show was so mid. Like, it's just.
Yeah, I bowed out at 3 episodes. I couldn't finish it.
Like, I watched the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, and it's like, you didn't bother de-aging Anakin. Like, acting wise, Hayden was fine, but like, but like they didn't like he's a 40-year-old trying to act like a 19-year-old. He's got visible wrinkles. It just takes me out of it so much, Yeah. And like people have done deep fakes, and it looks so much better. And those are deep fakes. Yeah. And imagine what Disney could do, And I don't even mind. I don't mind the Luke scenes. The Luke scenes of Mandalorian, they're Uncanny Valley, but like I can deal with those. Those are fine. I'm fine with those.
Yeah, they look pretty good. The biggest hiccup that I have with those is the dialogue. He's speaking so slowly, so the mouth will match, and it's not. It doesn't feel entirely like Luke Skywalker. It feels like I don't want to say a Gollum, but it feels like a
don't give Gollum a bad name.
An artificial. No, I mean I don't mean like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. I mean like a golem, Golem, like a reanimated, lifeless thing. It's almost like a robot.
Did you watch the behind the scenes for that section? Because like they actually brought in Mark Hamill, put him in the outfit, and had him act out the scenes, and then the body double did it. So it's like they did it about as well as you could do. Like they actually brought in Mark Hamill. So it's
Yeah, the problem is he's speaking so slowly and deliberately. They're doing it in order for everything to match, so they can do the match move in the effects. It's not it doesn't sound natural, but you have limitations to that technology, and you're always going to run into that. Whenever somebody is using something new, then there are we can only push it so far, and then it starts to get flimsy. It'll get better.
Like I thought the General Tarkin stuff in Rogue One was fine.
Oh yeah, that looks fine. There are a couple of places where it's a little uncanny valley, like you're talking about, but yeah, I mean, especially given the fact that it was one of the first times they'd done it, It was pretty impressive, I thought.
Well, the first time they really tried to do it was Tron Legacy, like kind of bring it back to that. Like,
Yeah.
Personally, I like the whole Clue stuff. It's not it's not as bad as people say it is, and like given how early that tech was and how it's in a digital world, I can kind of forgive it a lot of it.
Yeah, because he's not a real person at that point. He's a program.
So, yeah, but like, I've seen people where they do like deep fake and replace the face, and it looks so good. Like, I hope that if they ever like re-release the movie, they like redo the effects and have it be so much better. Like, that'll be so great.
I'm not sure that they would take the time and the expense to redo it, but if Kaczynski can ride the wave of Top Gun Maverick properly, then I think they could probably make a pitch for Tron 3. The problem with that,
I mean, yeah, they expressed interest in it.
Yeah, but it's a different studio. So, you know, Disney going through what they're going through right now, you'd have to have several people. I mean, Chapek would be the one to make the call. So, you know, if he's looking at the bottom line and he says, "Oh, well, this movie just made, you know, just beat our Avengers movie in the box office numbers. Maybe this guy has got something that we need." And maybe that's a conversation that they could have. And Tron 3 comes back. The problem is, you're going to run into Tron 3, the same problem with everything else. Are you going to make a sequel that entertains us like Top Gun Maverick did? Or are you going to make a movie that preaches to us like Lightyear did? And Chapek already knows that's not the direction to go, because he came out with this memo. He says, this is all of the stuff that we're going to do, and we're not going to antagonize our customers. And he went ahead and let Lightyear go out there and let Lightyear fail so that the Pixar people would shut up. And he's like, all right.
I really feel like everyone's watching Warner Brothers right now, just because the mainstream narrative of like, oh, Zaslav, all he cares about is money, but like,
yeah,
you know, and I'm a pro Snyder person, and I'm excited the possibility of this returning. And granted, there are signs of it, but we don't know. But like, this is an experiment. This is an experiment that all of Hollywood is watching. If Zaslav can turn WB around by just giving people what audiences want, like, I think that will fully open the floodgates of things.
The problem with the Snyderverse is that it's not, well, okay. The difference between the Marvel superhero movies and the DC superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel's superhero movies are comic book movies, and DC's are movies based on comic books. There's a completely different approach to how they do the adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And Snyder's putting it in the real world doesn't work for me. Okay. You know, visually, Snyder is a great cinematographer. He's a great visual storyteller, but he cannot hold a plot together to save his life.
As a Snyder fan, I agree with you.
You can look at, you know, Sucker Punch, and, you know, I mean, Watchmen is pretty much the only one that holds together all the way through, is because he held so close to the comic book in that adaptation. I mean, sure, you take out all of the black ship stuff, you take out all of the island stuff, and you take that core story with just the Watchmen element, and he stays pretty faithful to that, at least up until the end.
Well, it's not just Watchmen, but also his Dawn of the Dead remake, because Zack Snyder is a director, is at his best when he's adapting something that has clear, defined stories. Like 300, basically the storyboards are already done for that. Same with Watchmen. And then Dawn of the Dead, he had the previous story that he could go back to. That whole core story was already there for him, you know.
And if he's doing anything original like that, it makes me concerned for Rebel Moon, because it'll look pretty, but I don't know that the story's going to hold up unless he just goes and does a pastiche of Star Wars, like, you know, because that was originally a Star Wars pitch that he's just, you know, we're filing the serial numbers off now and calling it Rebel Moon, but it's basically a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
So we'll see. I don't know.
That's why I feel like Snyder's at his best when he's either adapting something or you team him up with another established. So, like for example, Man of Steel. That was as much of a Christopher Nolan film as it was a Zack Snyder film, and that's why it kind of feels like the difference between Man of Steel and BVS is very stark. They're thematically and very tonally very similar, like the other through line, but Man of Steel kind of has a slightly different feel, and I feel like you can kind of see the fingerprints of Christopher Nolan on Man of Steel.
Yeah, the problem with that is you're still, that whole grounded in reality thing, and when you're talking about that, you don't get Superman that way. You get an alien visitor from another world who frightens everybody to death because what happens when he gets out of control. I am still waiting for the big blue Boy Scout. I mean, there's a particular reason why Superman has endured for 80 years, and it's not because he's an alien. It's not because he's the outsider. He's not. He's an adopted son of the Midwest, and he's grown up with those values. And
I'm from Kansas. It's as American as it gets.
Exactly. And he is the ultimate optimist. He is a believer that humanity can be better than they are. And if you really want to look at the outsiders out of the three, Wonder Woman is the alien. Out of Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, she's the one who has such a skewed perspective because she's grown up on Paradise Island. She hasn't had any interaction with man's world until Steve Trevor shows up. It's a completely alien culture to her. Superman grew up in it. And this whole idea that, and I get it, yes, modern storytelling, yeah, there would be some people that are afraid of him. You've had those stories over the years, but for Jonathan Kent to sit there and say, hide who you are, that goes completely against everything that we've ever known about Clark's father. And,
I would argue
that just sours me to the.
I would say he's trying to prepare him for him to decide what he wants to be. Like that was my
except that's not the Jonathan Kent character. Jonathan Kent has always said, we saw it in Superman 78. One thing I do know is you're here for a reason. He's it's like Uncle Ben. With great power must also come great responsibility. There's that mindset that you have to think outside yourself and be ready, be here for a reason. There's a purpose. You have some destiny other than just have superpowers. What are you going to do with them? And we didn't get that in the Snyder stuff. I would say just completely redo everything. Just start over, give it a couple of years, let the Flash get out of the way. Because
the problem is, I feel like Henry Cavill is like the perfect choice for a hopeful Superman. Like you just see his acting style, you see how the person he is. Like for the big blue Boy Scout, Henry Cavill could perfectly do it. He could do it brilliantly.
He could do it, but he's got to have the material. And so
I say do a Man of Steel 2, give him the material, make him the blue Boy Scout, and then we can all be happy. That to me is a compromise. We keep the universe, we mold him into what we need him to be.
Well, the challenge, and by all accounts, that was what Snyder's plan originally was the trilogy and the whatnot to get him there. But the challenge now is going to be, Cavill is such in demand because of The Witcher. People are talking about him as James Bond, maybe as Captain Britain over on the Marvel side of things. Who knows what's going to happen next? He's now a prime commodity, as it were, and he's going to.
The chance to lock him into a contract is passed.
Yeah, he's going to want more money. And he's perfectly fine coming back. He said he's interested in playing Superman more. He wants to come back to the role. And, we hear Dwayne Johnson saying, we definitely want to have Cavill back as Superman. So all of the pieces are there. The challenge is going to be, where does Michael DeLuca, Pam Abney, David Zaslav, and if what's his name, Lynn, becomes the new head of DC Films, what direction do they want to take things? Because we've delayed Shazam again, we've delayed Aquaman 2 again.
I mean,
Are
it's
we
pretty
fixing
clear.
those, or what? Are we taking those and reshooting in order to take them out of the Snyderverse? Or are we doubling down on the Snyderverse? What's
In
going to
my
happen? Because now
opinion,
we got to deal with the
given
Flash too.
given everything we've seen, I think it was clear at one point the plan was reset the universe with Flash, bring in Michael Keaton as a temporary replacement Batman, kill him off in Batgirl, and then I think it was very clear that was where they wanted to go. But like they canceled Batgirl, the fact that Aquaman is now coming out after the Flash and Ben Affleck is going to be in it is clear that
Yeah.
Ben Affleck is going to be the Batman in the universe. It's like the plays are in place for at least Snyder involved, or like maybe not involve Snyder, but the
Well,
universe existing.
the thing with Keaton is if you're going to bring him back, that you don't bring him back to kill him off. And I hadn't heard that they were going to kill him off in Batgirl because he was going to be in other things as well. But you do Batman Beyond. You give him old Bruce Wayne and put him up against Terry McGinnis and give us Batman Beyond.
Oh, I'd love that. I've been saying that for months now. I'd love that kind of movie. And I feel like they were gonna try and do that with Batgirl, but like it's not it's not Batman Beyond. It's Batgirl.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know. But like, because like I feel like a Batgirl movie, like if you want it, like this is like how I would do it. Like you keep the current Batgirl because like she did her movie. I have empathy for the cast and crew who are in that movie. Not so much for the movie itself, but like the cast and crew I feel for. You bring her, you do Batfleck, you do a Batman Batfleck movie, but what it is Batgirl is like a new up. It's kind of like a Dark Knight Returns kind of situation where it's like, I don't want a partner, I can help you, and then he grows to accept her. Like you do that kind of story. That way, you get your Batgirl. You bring her up. And it's still a good Batfleck movie, but have the subplot of her, that kind of thing. And then you bring her up, and bam, you've now got a Batgirl that people like, and it's like you did a Batfleck movie, and it's still a good movie, and it's basically an everybody wins situation, and that's how I would.
Well, the thing with Leslie Grace playing Batgirl is that you've got another situation where you've got a ginger side, and you have a person of color replacing a redhead, which these days Hollywood, that's to be expected. Anytime you've got a redheaded character, we're just automatically going to assume that you're going to be replacing that character. But
they did my girl Triss dirty in The Witcher.
I mean, everybody, all of them. I mean, Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl, and the Cyclone coming up in Black Adam. And there's
every time Wally West has appeared in live action in the past 10 years, he's been black.
Pretty much, yeah, and and some of that's New 52, but some of that is it's this. I don't know what Hollywood has.
Iris.
I don't know what Hollywood has against redheads, but maybe they take this too seriously that redheads steal the souls out of everybody. Who knows? I don't know, but we haven't seen Leslie Grace in anything to know whether or not she would have been good in the role anyway. There are reports. Everybody that's seen this thing has said it feels like a bad CW pilot. And that doesn't say very much about the people who are making it.
My pick for Batgirl is Jenna Malone.
Jenna Malone could do it.
Or I mean, she's got the spunk. And she's got she's a bit redhead in certain things, and she looks great. She would be great as Batgirl. She's my perfect pick. I love that actress.
Yeah, I wouldn't do Carrie Kelly. I mean, you haven't earned Carrie Kelly yet. Then this is the problem that I have with Batman v Superman, is that fight, that whole storyline comes after 40, 50 years of Batman and Superman being friends. They haven't earned it yet. It's something where they're doing this, and the history behind those characters and the friendship that they have, that's what makes that battle even more have more emotional impact. I watched it in Batman v Superman. I didn't care. Like, I don't care about these people because they don't know each other. This fight they should be having when they're friends for 30 years, because it hurts to be doing this. And you don't have that gravitas. You haven't earned that. And one of the things that the Marvel stories got right is you do all of your solo things and then you do the group. And DC wanted to have their cake and eat it too and do some catching up, and they do the Justice League first and then we spin out some solos. And you can't do that. You don't earn that story with Justice League until you get the audience emotionally invested in the core characters. And they didn't do that.
Yeah, like in an alternate universe, what movies should they have done between? So obviously there was Wonder Woman in between BVS and Justice League. What other movies should have been between? Because I feel like Aquaman being after Justice League was fine. Like, I feel like even in Zack Snyder's timeline, that movie would have still been successful.
Aquaman doesn't feel like it's in the Snyderverse. It can be standalone enough. You could completely do away with the Snyderverse and you could still keep Momoa as Aquaman, even though he doesn't look anything like the character, and you'd still be okay. You know, the Snyderverse could be completely wiped out and you'd be okay with Momoa as Aquaman, because
it's literally one line. It's one line that connects to the Snyderverse where Mara says, "You fought against Steppenwolf." It's literally one line.
And it doesn't even have to reference that movie. It could just be a throwaway reference that he's done it before. So,
speaking of Mira, do you believe the reports that Amber Heard is being replaced by Emilia Clarke? Which I'm like, yes, please.
I'm leaning in that direction. I mean, I haven't had anybody telling me anything directly, because we don't have the sources I would like to have. But by all accounts that I've heard from various different places, who have people bending their ears, like, hey, this is what I've heard. So, you've got, Doomcock's got his sources. You got Midnight's Edge doing their stuff, and Andy Signor, and, various different places. Yeah, I think that Umbrella guy has got some stuff. So people are basically out there saying that it's where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think there's a real possibility that they could be looking at some kind of a replacement. Whether it's, Emilia Clarke makes sense. She's got chemistry with Momoa because
and if you watch the Johnny Depp trial, the biggest concern about Amber Heard was her chemistry with Jason Momoa on the set of that was like the biggest problem they had. And the easiest solution, because Emilia Clarke can do Mira, like her acting ability, she's perfect wise, she can do it no problem. And and she's got the look of it, put a red wig on her, she's fine. And it's got that built-in chemistry. Like, there's like no doubt. It's like, okay, we can guarantee there will be electric, inferno amount of chemistry between these two. Because we have it on screen.
You can't say there's a guarantee, because a lot of that depends on the material too. If the script isn't there, then, performance can elevate crappy story only so much. And even if they've got the chemistry, even if they have that mesh between them, if the story is crap, they're not going to be able to save it. Whether it's Emilia Clarke or Amber Heard or anybody, Anna de Armas or whoever else.
So, to quote Harrison Ford, you can type this, George, but you can't say it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sorry. I love that. I love that quote from it. It was Harrison Ford that said that, right?
Yes. Well, with some expletives in there, but yes, that's what he said. Now, and the other thing, I've quoted Harrison Ford on a number of occasions as something else that he said. He did an interview, and he basically came out and said, I don't see anybody that comes and sees my movies, I don't see them as fans. They're customers. They're paying for a product, and I have to deliver the best possible product because they're customers. Yeah. And David Zaslav and Bob Chapek both seem to have that same kind of mindset that this is a business. We're in the business to make money. It almost feels like somebody put Jim Shooter in charge of both of these studios because, hey, we're here for profit. And we have shareholders, and we have a fiduciary obligation here. We have a responsibility to make money for the people who own stock in our company. And if you're making decisions that cost the studio money, that don't have any benefit financially to the company, then you're making mistakes. And I think Zaslav is trying to correct for some of that. And I totally understand when he sits there and says, we're not going to overspend on streaming. We're not going to just make stuff just for our channel, because it doesn't make any sense. You have all of these other revenue streams that you're cutting yourself off from if you sit there and say, well, we're going to make this movie and it's going to go to HBO Max. We can't make any money that way because it's all internal. If you make a movie and then maybe you let Apple Plus run it, well, Apple Plus has to pay you for it. You recoup some of your expenses that way. And that's some of the stuff like what we're hearing about the new Batman Cape Crusader animated thing. You know, everybody's all up in arms and clutching their pearls because, oh, it's been canceled. No, it hadn't been canceled. It's just not going to HBO Max.
I guarantee you,
you're going to shop
probably
around.
Want to pick it up. I guarantee you, like, honestly, I think it should go to Amazon, because, like, Amazon Prime is actually building themselves a really good catalog of, like, superhero content. I think Batman would be perfect amongst Invincible, like, putting it, like, right next to Invincible, The Boys, I think would be perfect.
Maybe. It depends on what kind of cartoon it is. If it's Batman the Animated Series, then no. If it's The Dark Knight Returns in cartoon form, maybe. It depends on the tone. Harley Quinn is an example. Yeah, you could put that next to The Boys, but the way it's animated, it's kind of schizophrenic that way, because it looks like a kid's cartoon, but it's not. Mm-hmm. If they do Cape Crusader the way I've been hearing them describe it, where it's real film noir and really leans into that aesthetic like the original animated series did, then you could have a really good show coming out of it, especially if J.J. Abrams keeps his hands off of it and just lets them do their thing.
All right, here, put this in the mystery box here, put this in the box here. Oh, what's the answer to the questions? I don't know. We'll answer it. Yeah. Probably not, but,
yeah.
See, this is what I hate mystery about J.J. Abrams. And I like mystery box storytelling. I do mystery box storytelling myself. But the thing is, if you're going to ask, you don't ask questions that you don't know the answers to. Yeah, so when you pose a question in your story, you got to already know what the answer is. You got to already, you can maybe be like, okay, I know what the answer is. I don't know how they're going to get to it, but I know the answer. You can work with that. You can at least work with it knowing, all right, I know steps 1, 2, and 5, but, I don't know steps 3 and 4. You can figure that out along the way. That's fine.
It's like that. It's like that meme, have the, step 1 this, step 2 this, step 3 something, 4 profit. It's that something in the middle that's just kind of there. My biggest problem with Abrams is he can't stick the landing. I have not seen yet anything that Abrams has done where the ending makes sense, where the ending really works.
You can tell people have forgotten about Lost. You can tell.
Yeah, I mean,
it ended 10 years ago, so it's kind of understandable.
Well, Lost is just one example of that. Alias is one. What was that one he did with Spielberg, Super 8 or whatever that was? The
Cloverfield.
No, not Cloverfield. It was the other one. It was basically E.T. It was basically E.T. over again. And I'm like, the ending of all of Abrams' stuff, and his Mission Impossible ones are probably the exception to this because he didn't write them. But
Star Trek 09 is a good movie, and I will die on that hill.
Oh,
the first one.
No, it's not. It's crap. It's okay up until the point where Star Trek comes on the screen. After that, it's all downhill from there, because it doesn't respect the source material. It's not a Star Trek movie. It's a Star Wars movie with the serial numbers filed off, so that J.J. Abrams can audition for Lucasfilm. That's all that movie is.
And my problem with J.J. Abrams Star Wars.
garbage piece of
See, the problem with
storytelling.
Force Awakens, which everyone says, "Oh, Force Awakens, it's a good one." That's because it is literally a line for line ripoff of A New Hope, and I just can't I cannot stand that movie because
Well,
everything good about that movie George Lucas did in '77.
yeah, and I can understand why they did it that way too, because this is a completely new studio. It's new people doing it. You want to reassure the fans, and okay, we know what we're doing. We're going to do this. So I can see doing something that's similar along the lines, plot wise and all of that. Is it too much of a copy? Yes, but at the time, people didn't quite realize and sit and think about it until after the fact. And then people started to think, well, hang on, wait a minute. And then Last Jedi came out, and then the balloon goes up, and after that, it's just all a mess. And there was clearly no plan.
As soon as they put the map in BB-8, I was like, oh my god, they're just ripping. Like, I figured it out almost right away. Like,
yeah,
I was like watching. It's like they're just doing it. Like, I was like, wait. I was like, maybe that moment was like, wait a minute, and then they kept doing the beats, and it's like literally Maz Kanata is the cantina scene. It's just like, and then and it's like, wait, why do you have this? It's a good story for another time, and it's like Finn, like, oh my god, Finn was like such a good setup for a character. Finn should have been a Jedi.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why The Force Awakens works as well as it does. It's not great. It's the best of the three because it's the setup movie. It sets up Rey. It sets up Finn. And it gives those characters... Well, yeah, but it gives those characters potential to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. Now, that potential is not realized, not properly anyway. So, you could look at Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and they completely obliterate all of the potential for those characters that we had that set up in The Force Awakens. But you got to start somewhere. And everybody knew going into it that this was going to be a handoff to the next generation because all of our classic original characters are older. They're not going to be able, they're not going to be around for a while, for very much longer. We've got to make plans for that. I get that.
I was fine with
introduce new characters. I'm perfectly fine you introduce new characters.
Like, as far as killing off Han, I was perfectly fine with that because, like, I knew that was the only way they could get Harrison Ford to come back if they promised to kill his character. Like, I knew him having such a prominent role. He was basically Obi-Wan. Like, I'm fine with them killing him off because, like, that's what he's wanted all this time. It's like, okay, fine.
And if you do the hero's journey story beats, you've got Rey and Finn both. Either one of them, if they're on the hero's journey, the mentor is going to have to die. So yeah, it makes sense for Han's, whether it's Han Solo or Luke or whoever. But in this particular context, killing off Han, yes, we all expected it because it's Harrison Ford. But the way it was done, I mean, he kind of went out like a chump. And people were not happy about that. So, it's a mixed bag. It sets up these characters and it sets up a lot of potential for the storyline. And then, you get a hard left turn with Last Jedi, and it's clear at that point that nobody knows what they're doing.
I will say this, in some of its defense, the fact that Carrie Fisher died after Last Jedi did kind of throw a monkey wrench into some of the stuff, because it's very clear they wanted to, like, she was supposed to be the one to die in the next film. That's eventually what happened. But, like, if we had her in Rise of Skywalker, I'm not saying it would have fixed the movie, but it would have been a little bit better. And I just,
you have that. You have Abrams coming back, which was not the original plan. I mean, you had Colin Trevorrow doing Duel of the Fates.
The fact they had three different directors for three movies.
Well, you had three different. Yeah, but you had three different directors for the original trilogy too. I mean, that's not any big deal as long as you have a cohesive plan for all three acts. See, Rian Johnson didn't understand that he was making Act 2 of a 3-act play, and that's where it falls apart. Then you get Rise of Skywalker, and Abrams has to come back because Trevorrow's now got this story that's completely unmakeable because Johnson blew everything out. He's like, well, I can't do anything with this. And so
What was
he
the original
leaves. And so
plan for
now you
Duel of the
got,
Fates?
do what?
What was the original plan for Duel of the Fates?
It's out there. I haven't looked into too many details on it, but it basically takes the through lines that we got in Force Awakens and what people expected to see in the second act, and it builds on
So we got like a good answer
plots.
for Snoke. Rey's still
Yeah,
nobody, which I
and
think her being
everything.
nobody is actually because like for a story about bloodlines don't matter, and then the next film suddenly bloodlines do matter. It's really jarring.
Yeah. And so, you got Abrams coming back, and now they're in a panic because they've got to fix things, right? Because now it's out there, and the public realizes, and especially the fandom, they all sit there and they understand, and Abrams even confirms it. They didn't have a plan. There was no cohesive, okay, act one is this, act two is this, act three is this, and here's the story. And you got
Suddenly
Kathleen
laughing
Kennedy
George
sitting there
Lucas
saying,
out of the room. Suddenly
yeah,
laughing George Lucas out of the room suddenly seems like that was a bad move.
oh, absolutely.
He literally handed them a trilogy on a silver platter. It's not to say they had to do that verbatim, but at least they could have used that as a bones, as a skeleton of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They literally
And
just took it.
like,
It me like,
and it does feel like they probably did kind of like what they've been doing with the EU. It's they're cherry picking pieces from Lucas's treatments and his drafts and putting pieces in. Ray is Kira is whoever. So there's bits and pieces in there, but it's there's no solid cohesive A to B to C to D, and here's the end. It's
they should have used
throw
George
stuff up on the wall.
They should have just used that as the starting point and just kind of base everything off of there. And it would have been a lot better if they just would have used George's treatment. It would have been, at least it would have made some sort of sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have the additional complication that with Bad Robot being involved, if Bad Robot is going to make any money, and you can blame George Lucas for this going all the way back to 1976 with the merchandising rights. Well, we're going to make a bunch of money off of the merchandise. And so because of all of that, we've got to, that whole 25% thing, Millennium Falcon's got to be 25% different, and everything's got to be 25% different from the original so that Bad Robot can take their piece of the cut and they can make money. The only thing is nobody sold any merchandise. Nobody wanted to license anything. The action figures didn't sell, and nobody wanted to make any toys off of it. Hasbro only did a certain amount, and nobody else wanted to do anything. And so you start to lose money because you're not making anything in the merchandise sales. Mm-hmm. So that just added on top of everything else, in addition to the fact that you've got people at Lucasfilm who are getting all political with everything. And then Rian Johnson doing what he did on social media, and it just turned into a dumpster fire.
Speaking of merchandising, it is honestly shocking that the surprise hit of Baby Yoda caught them with their pants down. Like, I'm just shocked that like they didn't like. It's like if you watch the series, he's the central character. Like, they must have known. Like, they had no merchandise for him up until midway through. Like, up until the lead up to season 2, they had some merchandise for him. But like when Baby Yoda like exploded, they had nothing. Like, I don't know, why did they not know that like maybe we should at least have something out there? Like, I just don't get it.
That reinforces the rumor that Favreau and Kennedy are not talking to each other, and you have the factions. You have the civil war at Lucasfilm, right? You have Baby Yoda was such a secret. Grogu was this well-kept secret that nobody knew about until the first episode aired, and suddenly we've got a Baby Yoda, and everybody's like, "Oh, there's a Baby Yoda! Oh, he's so cute." Well, if the rumors are to be believed, and Favreau is off doing The Mandalorian on his own with very little or limited involvement from Kennedy, and I'm keeping it a secret from her. I don't want her to know what we're doing because I don't want her meddling. And you've got Kennedy over here, and all of the machine is over here doing their thing. Well, I'm not going to communicate with them about Baby Yoda because we don't want the secret getting out. And we've seen with all the Marvel stuff, I mean, how many Lego sets have come out of spoiled pieces of the movies from, we get a month out, here's the new Lego kit, and oh, here's this major plot element, the major story point that's revealed in the Lego kit.
I remember it happened with Jurassic World. I remember I was in my local Kmart, and it was like 2 weeks before the film came out, and all the posts like, "Ooh, there's this new mysterious dinosaur," and like I'm standing in the toy aisle, and there's this thing that says I-Rex on it. Like literally, they had the I-Rex toy 2 weeks, like months, and it's like, well, there goes the movie. Do
you guys still have Kmart up there?
We did. There's kind of still a few floating around. There's one about a mile from my house that was there forever. It closed down like a couple years ago.
Yeah. I think we all of ours are gone now.
Yeah. Fun fact: Kmart actually originated in Michigan, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Like the old headquarters in Troy was literally an hour from my house. In fact, the original Kmart is like half an hour from where I live. I think it's like in Garden City somewhere. So it's like, yeah, Kmart was that story of Kmart is so bad because like Kmart was doing the Walmart thing, and then like really Kmart died in the 90s because like they did some stuff, and then Walmart launched a price war, and that pretty much crippled them. They kind of limped along for another 20 years, but it's sad.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's where we are, and it's just it's frustrating, but at the same time, I have gotten to the point where I'm 52 years old, and I am at the point where I don't even feel obligated to invest in any of this stuff anymore. I mean, as much as we do it, we cover it here with what we do here with all of our shows and all our reviews and all that. At the same time, I'm not that emotionally invested in any of it anymore. I don't care. We're providing a service by putting out news and opinion content and talk and discussion and whatnot. But for me, if I never see another frame of Star Wars, I'm not going to lose any sleep. Battlestar Galactica, Doctor Who, Star Trek, any of that stuff. I'm just like, well, okay, I take it or leave it. And it was the opposite of love is indifference. And that's where I'm at. And
my feeling is we live in an era of so much content where it's like there's so many Star Wars novels I haven't read. There's Star Wars games I've never played. There's like 20 seasons of Power Rangers. There's all these like anime from like the past 40 years I've never even seen. TV shows, movies. There's so much like even if you want to limit it to like 2010 and before, there's so much content that I've never seen. Where it's like I don't need anything to come out new. I can just keep watching old stuff literally for the rest of my life and still not even touch half of it.
I have a problem with the word content. It's too corporate. It's too intellectual property and content and all of this. It commoditizes things a little bit too much. This is a story. You want to tell me a story, entertain me. Give me a little bit of an escape for an hour or two, so I can just kind of just unwind and relax. And you tell me something, and okay, I feel good coming away from it. I enjoyed that story, whether it has me thinking or so. Yeah, just give me something that I can sit and I can enjoy it. And maybe it has me thinking on the way out, or we have some discussions with my friends and the group of us. We all go out and talk about it afterwards. But it becomes a product. It becomes too much of a packaged assembly line. And then it goes back to what Henry Ford says. When they came out with the Model T, you can have any color as long as it's black. This is the same kind of thing. You can have any movie you want as long as it's a remake, as long as it fits this box.
Don't complain. Consume product. and then get excited for next product. I mean,
That's exactly
I
what it
kind of
is.
wonder how that guy feels about being the face of a movement. Like, I wonder how. Like, I mean, he said it, so I'm sure he kind of is sympathetic to those ideas. But like, I wonder how he feels like those words. Though that's his trademark now. That's his legacy. Are those words?
Yeah. Yeah, and
It's
that's
really
where we are. Yeah, and that's where we are as a society. It's not just our entertainment; it's everything.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
got
like you said earlier, the pendulum's kind of starting to swing forward, backwards, and eventually it will. I mean, that's what always happens, but it's slow. Is it starting to pick up steam? Maybe it's kind of up for debate, but eventually the pendulum will swing back, and I'm not saying it'll be sunshine and rainbows, but I mean, these things don't last forever. If time has shown us anything, the pendulum will swing back and forth through and through.
yeah. The
And I
only
do feel like people are getting tired of the rhetoric. I do feel like
yeah,
it.
the concern that I have is when the pendulum swings back, there's going to be a lot of damage, and I don't know that some of these franchises will recover.
Yeah.
Star Wars may not recover. Somebody was doing in a thread. Okay, you've now been handed Star Wars. What do you do? And my answer was, shut it down for 10 years and see if anybody misses it.
See, here's the problem. MCU is the Star Wars of this generation. For people younger than me, the MCU is the equivalent of Star Wars, and that's a problem with a lot of these legacy franchises, as they lasted so long because you pass it down from one generation to the next, and you kind of broke that with a lot of franchises. Star Wars in particular, like the new generation didn't really latch on to Star Wars, and honestly, I don't blame them. They latched on to the MCU. That's going to be their Star Wars. That is their Star Wars, and
I can see that to a point, yeah. So
and
it's like we'll see what happens. I mean, we got to get past the midterms first, and then
Yeah, the midterms. That I mean, why do you think? What I mean, we're both kind of on the same political persuasion, but I don't like getting political on my shows. But like, it's going to be the barometer check. Honestly, like I feel like it's probably going to go the way I would prefer it. I'm trying to be vague here, but like it's going to be the barometer check. It is the barometer check for the way the wind is blowing. That is the big thing.
They say that politics is downstream from culture, and the culture right now, you're getting a lot of blowback on the speechifying and the preaching and the woke and the politics and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have you've got people that have more actively started to reject all of that, and I think,
and not just the extremists. You're starting to see more that that's the thing. Once the normies start get rejecting it, that's what we're getting into is even the normies, even people who have there's people who are rejecting this kind of the normies are starting to reject it, and that's when you get the problem. That's why the Disney Plus shows haven't been doing so well. The Marvel movies haven't been doing so well because the normies are rejecting it, and that's why you're starting to see these companies start it's because these companies they don't give a shit about woke politics. They don't give a motherfucking shit about it. It's the end of the show. I don't care. All they care about is money, and all they care about is what they can make. And for 10 years, woke politics made them money. But now woke politics is actually starting to affect their bottom line, and that's why you're starting to see the sudden shift.
I would challenge the notion that woke politics made people money. I think that some of this stuff made money in spite of that.
Okay.
Because you look at something like, say, Captain Marvel, for example, and Brie Larson coming out and doing what she did and the way they marketed it.
The only reason that thing made money is because they literally did everything they could. They positioned it right before Endgame. Like, you have to watch this if you want to watch Endgame.
And that's the only reason that movie did well. If it had been out on its own somewhere else, it would have done much less in terms of box office. And
because
Last Jedi and Last Jedi
people have been conditioned. I'm sorry. We keep talking over each other. I apologize.
Okay. That's all right. It's all right.
But like with
I was just,
the Marvel movies, we have been conditioned to watch all of them to get the story at the time. I mean, now, so that's not really a thing.
yeah.
And that's really
Well,
what Captain Marvel benefited off of.
it's like doing homework. It's well, if you want to understand what's going on in this movie, you got to watch this TV show and read this comic book and look at this novel and this thing. And with The Last Jedi and Captain Marvel, like you're saying, with the normies, people started to understand there's a split between what we want to be true and what's actually true. And how dare you not like what we're doing? We're going to call you names because you don't like it. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. It was going on before that. Yes. You get something like Supergirl, for example, over on the CW, where they really leaned into it starting about the third season. And, you had an entire storyline that was about immigrants and illegal aliens. I mean, it was almost like they're waving a sign right in your face and saying, hey, look at what we're doing here. We're not being subtle.
I actually kind of enjoyed the early seasons of Supergirl. Like, they weren't perfect, but like they were enjoyable, and I liked the whole like adorkable Kara Danvers and like and like that kind of like that was endearing. I liked it.
First couple of seasons were good. When they flipped over and started doing the illegal immigrant, I think it was season 3. It might have been season 4. But as soon as they leaned into the politics of that for an entire season, that was it. I was done. I was like, no. People started to look at this and say, why are you doing this? Why aren't you telling me a Supergirl story?
Smallville did illegal immigration better. Like, I remember Smallville did an illegal immigrant episode, and that was fine. Like, there's literally where Clark says, I'm an illegal immigrant. Like, it was more on the nose, but they actually treated it with a little bit more care. And it was also one episode, too, that probably helped. But, like...
It's in the approach. It's one. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's in the Marvel and DC comics right now. Some of the writing is so in your face, blatant. Let's hit you over the head with a baseball bat and not be. It's not about subtext. It's we're going to just flat out take our script from Twitter and drop it in here, and
that's
people
really
start
the
to
problem
with
like
stuff.
all woke media. And that's kind of like I identified this problem a long time ago.
And it turns people
off.
There's
no subtlety. There's no nuance. Like for example, I mentioned that I love the Twilight Zone, and they talk about highly politicized issues, but they bury it in the subtext. They bury it in subtlety. They put it in metaphor. Like Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is, the dangers of prejudice, but they wrap it in such a great package, and it's like it's really interesting. Like, for example, Static Shock, literally tackled racial issues on kids' Saturday morning cartoons, and they did it well. It was like, and I'm not, and they weren't very subtle at all. Like, they were very in your face about it, but they handled it with a certain care, and they actually executed it well. And it's just, you don't see that anymore. I look at like stuff like Static Shock and be like, okay, that's cool. I'll listen to what you're saying. Versus them, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like, no.
Yeah, it can be done. It just doesn't always get done.
The way that I say is people are fine with being led to drink the water. Like, if you say, hey, you should drink the water is good for you. People be like, okay, sure, if you say so, and they'll drink the water. If you say, drink the water, or you're an idiot, you're a moron, it's healthy, it's good, they're like, no, I'm not going to drink the water. No, it's like, it's just human nature. It's like the whole, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
That's right. I don't know.
That's really where we're at. Is people are telling people what to do, and by human nature, we're rejecting it. It's such basic human nature. I don't get why they don't understand it.
It's just the way things are, Red. I guess.
Yeah,
it'll get better. It'll get worse before it gets better, but it will get better.
Yeah, so. I mean, I guarantee you, as the woke schools start realizing they're losing the battle, right before they give up, they're gonna like double down as hard as they can. It's gonna blow up in their faces, So we might see like a year of like really, really aggressive politics. People are gonna reject it, and then like a light switch, they'll be gone, and all of a sudden we'll start getting good stories again. And
one can hope.
That yes, and I refuse to be a black pill. I'm kind of a person where I just want to hope. I hate I don't want to be pessimistic. You know, it's like I'm doing everything I can. But yeah. So we're going on about a half an hour, so let's kind of wrap up. Jason, where can people find you?
For social media and whatnot, we are all over the place. We're on 10 different accounts. We've got different video platforms and a newsletter to sign up for. And then we've got the channel here on YouTube. We've got a TV.2 here on YouTube. We're over on Odyssey. So people can find us pretty much anywhere. All you got to do is just search Sci-Fi4Me TV, and or even just Sci-Fi4Me. And they should be able to find us.
All right, and so this is Nick from the Phoenix Press. You can find me on my Twitter, Project Axis1, or here on YouTube. The next time you'll see this face again, I'll be over on Jared's channel at Comics League, where I'll be premiering the trailer for Screecher, as well as going live with the sign-ups. This has been Nick from the Phoenix Press. Remember, I can only show you the door. You're the ones to walk through it.